Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first live stream here on Enso. My name is Joe, and I will be your host for today. If this is your first time hearing about Enso or tuning into this channel, which obviously it's your first time here, it's our first live stream. We are a visual and textual programming language. This is kind of like, I guess, a big week for us because we're going to be sending out some packages to users this week of a big release that we've been working on for a long time. And kind of in celebration of that, we thought we would go live on Twitch and show off some of what the language has to offer. And one of our developers, Marcin, is going to absolutely school me today and teach me some Enso because I've been bothering him all morning with questions when I was trying to do some simple stuff. So we're going to get a little bit of a tutorial today. So if you are new to Enso or you played with Luna in the past and you want to see what's changed, how it works, how it all comes together, this is going to be a great stream for you because we're walking through the language and its current state. And we will hopefully also show off a little bit of what's coming in the tester packages later in the week and how you can get hold of those. First up, we've already got some wonderful questions coming in from the folks on YouTube. So hi, Kimars, thanks for joining us. Ara is in the chat asking for mods. I will get to you in a minute, Ara. I have many things going on. So those of you in chat, thank you so much for joining us. This stream, as I said, is intro to Enso, and we are here for you. So please ask your questions as we go. I've got an eye on both YouTube and Twitch, and I will make sure that we answer all your questions. So Kimars, Luna will be transforming into Enso. Yes, that is correct. Luna rebranded to Enso earlier in the year, so we are now called Enso. The old Luna website is still up, so you will still see references to Luna, but for all intents and purposes, we are now called Enso. So if you struggle to find us, all of our usernames have changed to Enso, and I'll put those on the screen as we go. So you will be able to find us in all the places that we live, such as on Twitter at Enso_org, Twitch at Enso_org, Medium at Enso_org, and GitHub at Enso-org, which has tripped me up so many times this week. So that's enough of my ramble. Let me add Marcin up and let's get started. I hope he's ready to go. Hello. Yes, we're there. How are you doing?
I am great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm wonderful. This is very exciting. So whilst I add Ara to mods before she completely fills the chat with begging, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Marcin Kostrzewa, and on all our community channels I'm known as Kustosz, with an SZ at the end. That may be tricky for non-Polish speakers.
Like myself.
And yeah, and I'm an interpreter developer at Enso. So I work on all things deep interpreter and also designing libraries and designing the whole sort of ecosystem around the textual part of Enso. So I'm less connected to the beautiful visual stuff that we are actually bragging about. I'm responsible for making the backend go.
Right. Well, yeah, it is important to mention as well that obviously that beautiful visual stuff does key into everything that happens on the back end, and of course the standard library that you use in the front in the IDE is part of what you work on. Hence all my questions to you today. Ara, you are now a moderator. Happy mod powers. Can you also hike the gain on your mic, please, Marcin? So on the back of your mic, there will be a gain dial that you can turn up.
Is this
everything... We'll wait for Ara to confirm. So everything we're going to be playing with today with you in textual Enso. For those of you who aren't aware, Enso is a dual representation language. What does that mean? It means it has two interfaces: a traditional textual programming language that if you write code in Python or JavaScript or whatever it is just like that. You write text in a text editor and it does the thing. But also a visual node-based view where you can write expressions in nodes and connect those nodes together for your computations. So we're going to be looking mainly at textual Enso today. And we are going to be doing, when I said Marcin's going to be schooling me, we're going to be doing something called Learn X in Y. It's not better. Sorry, Ara, we'll work on it as we go.
How about now? Is this better?
That's powerful for me. First live stream problems. Hi, everyone. This is why we do it live. Anyway, so much better. Thank you so much, Ara. That's much appreciated. Should we dive into some Enso then? Would you like to show us what's happening?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So where would you like to start?
So I said we're going to do Learn X in Y. For those of you who haven't seen it, Learn X in Y is a wonderful little tutorial website. They have like short 15-minute guides on any programming language written in basically the language's like doc file, like format. So you can go there and you're like, oh, I just want a quick reference to Lua or Haskell or whatever and find a thing. So I thought it'd be a good place to start for us to build one of those and get it up on that site as a handy reference for anyone who's hacking about in the language. And it also presented me a nice excuse to make you explain the entirety of the programming language in front of me for an hour, so I can stop asking you questions. So I think that would be where we should start. But what we should do right now is mash Command+ on this terminal, because that is tiny.
That is fair.
We're on it, Wojtek, we're on it.
Is this
there
better?
We go. That's good for me. If anyone in the chat would like it bigger, we will keep working on it. So you just removed Learn X and Y, been practicing in the past. Now you've moved the terminal screen. What are you doing?
I'm trying to resize it because it.
We need to get you. Yeah, we need to get you on rectangle, man. Do you not have a window manager here?
No, I don't. And also, if you say Xmonad, I'm going to disconnect.
No, rectangle. It's a rectangle. No Xmonad. We're all good here. Perfect. So, so I know you had to look at Learn X and Y before. So Learn X and Y, the tutorials on there tend to have a little bit of a format in that, they walk through the basic functionality of like, this is how we declare a variable. This is how we use that variable in a thing. We don't necessarily, there's no prescripted format. That's just kind of what everyone has ended up doing. So we can approach this, I think, from anywhere that makes sense. So if you were going to teach Enso to, people who are new to Enso, like all of the people who are watching the stream, except for Wojtek and Ara, where would you start?
Well, I would start with downloading Enso, first of all. So you can get the textual representation of like the textual language, the actual compiler. You can get it from our GitHub. So you download a beautiful package that only contains Enso. You also need GraalVM if you do it my way, or we have nice launchers that will download GraalVM for you. So I suppose someone is posting links to all these right now. And I already have one of those. So I will just create a new project with --new. And it created a new project. So I can go into the newly created directory that I have just removed. And I get a fresh project structure. In this fresh project structure, I also have a source file that is called main.enso, and it has some stuff in it. So I guess this is how you create a project, and also how you run a project is by running the run command, as you could have probably figured. You pass it.
I guess if you're going to be doing this every day, you would run that. You'd add that binary to your path rather than doing the whole thing.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. I don't actually do that because I keep switching Enso binaries all the time during development. So if you go to any directory on my hard drive, there is a huge possibility that you will find an Enso binary.
I wonder how much your hard drive space is taken up by in development Enso binaries.
Yeah. That's a good question. So anyway, the project has run, but it didn't print anything because there is no prints in the new project template, because we have just switched to something that is more IDE friendly.
Yes. So I guess to briefly explain that, there's a visual component to this. There's a new IDE that we made available soon. The IDE, what used to be in the IDE was io.println, which doesn't make any sense in the IDE context because it's based on visualizations and connecting nodes together. So this example that you can see here involves multiple nodes and outputs something cool in the IDE. But if you wanted to output to console, there is a simple println. Yeah. You're using Vim, and I noticed you have some syntax highlighting. Where is that coming from?
I do have some syntax highlighting. So yeah, if you are going to be writing textual Enso, you have two options. Only one of them is actually good. So option number one is Vim, and the other option is Visual Studio Code. And both syntax highlighting plugins are maintained by yours truly. I mean, I do Vim, Joe does Visual Studio Code.
Maintained is a strong word for mine at the moment, but we'll get there.
Well, it's on our GitHub profiles.
Yeah, there you go. Those are down in the chat.
So yeah, I'm going to be using Vim because Vim is clearly the best text editor out there.
Not even getting into that today. I am not interested in this debate.
Right, and right at the top of the file, we have an import. So I guess let's start talking about imports because they are usually at the top. So, well, okay, let's start talking about comments. You create a simple comment by using the hash character. So everything written here until the end of line is going to be comment. There is also another kind of comments that I will get to soon. So for now, let's just use regular old boring comments. And we go from project import, let's call it names. So this is how you import specific names from your project or from your module. So you can have more specific kind of import. So something like from base.network.http import header. So right now in your scope you have the name header, and you can use this to access methods that are defined on it.
I see.
And there is also, so this is unqualified import of header.
So everything is just available, directly under that namespace, just under header dot something, right?
Yes, and also the name header itself is available. So there is another kind of import, which is a qualified import that doesn't start with a from. So you go import base network HTTP, and this is qualified import of HTTP. So now, for example, if you wanted to access header, you would go http.header. You don't have the name header itself in scope, right?
Right. Got you. Cool.
Right. We'll get deeper into what all of those names actually represent, but let's do that later. So this is how you import things. There is also from base import all. So all means all. So every name that is exported by this module will be available in your scope.
Right.
And I think this is it about imports for now.
Okay, cool.
And now we have methods. Also, another kind of comment. So I started this comment with £2. This sort of comment is always before a definition, so a method definition or a type definition, and this is a documentation comment. So this is treated by the Enso compiler as documentation, which has effects in, for example, allowing you to show this documentation in the IDE, as well as at some point generating a beautiful website listing all the documentation. Like if you ever used Javadoc, this is how
For sure,
this is how it behaves.
So when you, if any of you brave explorers have already downloaded our IDE action artifacts or on the list to test the upcoming release, which if you're not, we'll share how to get on that list towards the end of the stream. Whenever you use the searcher to look up a function, the documentation that you see in the searcher is generated by these comments.
Exactly.
Cool.
Right. So we are defining the main method, and the main method is the program entry point. So when I run Enso run from my console, this is precisely the function that was being executed. So this is similar to any other programming language, pretty much, right? Like main always means this is where you enter the program. So
pretty solid convention.
Exactly. Right. And let's now look at the body of main. So we have assignments. So I don't know how beginner friendly should I make this? Like, do we assume that our listeners know what an assignment is?
Go for it. Yeah, I think it's worth explaining because the semantics are a little bit different in every programming language, so worth talking about, I guess, especially given the complicated nature of assignments in functional languages. Where are they actually assignments? Exactly.
Right. Well, let me convince you that this is actually the opposite of complicated.
Yes.
We just give the value of this long expression. We just give the value of this long expression a name, and this name is single use only. So this is if you are coming from an imperative programming language such as Java or C++ or most other programming languages, JavaScript, you may be tempted to assign to operator 1 for the second time. This is not possible. So single assignment can't modify an existing variable. So if you tried doing this, if you tried going, this is going to be compile error. So this reports a compile error now. Okay, we got assignments covered.
Great.
Now I think it's time to talk about methods. And
Yeah,
the line
before
of
that though, can we just quickly answer the question in chat? So Twitch said the syntax looks inspired from Haskell. So space acts as function application and full stop is composition. Oh, Wojtek just got there. Would you like to talk about that briefly whilst we're that question?
Yeah. So yes, space means function application. Dot does not mean function composition. Dot means method application. So dot is the same dot that you know from JavaScript or Java or C++. Or most other programming languages, Python and Ruby included. So the dot is accessing a method, not composing functions. We have different operators for function composition that we will probably show later in the stream. Does that answer the question?
Perfectly. Thank you very much. And thank you as well, Wojtek, for answering questions in the chat. For those of you who are unaware, Wojtek is the CEO and co-founder hanging out in the chat as well. So if we don't see your question, you can always @mention him, and I'm sure he'll get there much quicker than we do. Wicked. So that makes sense in terms of assignment. And I see there that we are using something that looks a bit like a method on the sorting or wherever you wanted to go to next. So I may have jumped the gun there.
Yes, methods. Actually, let's call a more interesting method, one that takes arguments. So let's say, actually, sort is a good example. Let's just add it a few more arguments. So let's sort it by. Let's not use lambdas. Let's do this. So method calls. A dot, as I said just before, calls a method, calls method sort of operator 1. Right? So we have the dot operator being used here, and operator 1 is what we call the this argument. So this is the value that is supposed to actually define what it means to sort it. And it also accepts a bunch of arguments. So we have we can pass additional arguments. So in this case, we are passing order equals descending, and this is a named argument. So I know that the sort method takes an argument that's called order, that is taking an argument that is either ascending or descending. I could also just do this. And pass it positionally. So again, if you are familiar with Python or Ruby or Scala, but not Java or C++, then you will know what this syntax actually means. Right. So yeah, we can pass arguments to methods, and as such call them. Now there is. I think this is also time we talk about operator precedence, because otherwise this line that we should explain is not going to make any sense to anyone familiar with other programming languages.
I think that would be great. This is as both you and Wojtek know, something that I had a lot of questions about when I first started reading the language, and instantly all my doubts were cleared up upon having it explained to me. So I think that makes sense to get to it early. So
by the way, how do you feel about the feature now that you have used it for a while?
Now, especially after I think playing with the IDE the last couple of weeks, honestly, I didn't even notice it. My initial concern was that it was going to be a foot gun, in that like something unexpected was going to happen because I wasn't aware of it, and that like literally just hasn't happened to me at all. So, I think it's super neat, and I definitely see how it. What I'm saying makes no sense because we haven't explained it yet, but it does definitely make it easier to write things elegantly than I would have thought.
Okay, so operators have different precedence depending on spacing. This is almost like explaining something category theory. So let's give a few examples. Essentially, no spaces binds stronger than a spaced version. Okay, what does it mean? That means if I write something like foo of bar, so I'm calling the function foo on the argument bar, and then I'm going a spaced buzz.
Yeah.
This is going to be equivalent to if I parenthesized it. This would be equivalent to going foo bar dot buzz. However, why is it doing this? If I go foo bar
the best editor in the world,
buzz,
right?
if I go foo bar dot buzz without spaces,
Right.
this is going to be foo of bar dot buzz.
Right.
So you sort of need to get used to it, but also if you just look at both of those lines, it is sort of, at least to me, it's sort of visually obvious which I mean, right? Like if there is spaces, it sort of makes sense that this expression is being separated from this expression by the dot.
Yeah.
While here,
I found it, like,
this is a single
super
expression.
Yeah, especially since like this example we were talking about earlier. I guess I might as well say it's going to be on the Twitch soon. You'll notice our Twitch banner right now is a screenshot from the IDE. I was trying to make a screenshot from the IDE that was more like appropriate to the space, and I thought it'd be cute if that example was calling the Twitch API. And I was having some issues, but like there was part of it where I was reading my OAuth token from a file where this came into play, and I was like, oh, actually that's like super intuitive. I can just throw this in here, and like of course that isn't applying read to the other chunk, and I didn't have to preemphasize it how I would normally have to, which was super cool.
Yeah, and it's particularly cool when you have a long chain of method applications. It's already somewhat visible in the comments, but now look at this line.
Right.
Because of the spacing behavior of all this, if we didn't have this feature, if we didn't have differently applied spaces, like different precedence of operators based on spacing, we would have to do something like this, right? Even worse, also parenthesize this, which looks much more noisy and hides the actual logic that you are trying to perform. Okay, so now, Joe, can you parse out this line, since we already know what methods are and what operators are?
Can I parse out this line?
Yeah, can you explain what it does?
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. So we're creating a range with 0 up to 100. So up to is a method being called on 0, which will create a range ending in 100. That's then being converted to a vector. So that to vector is being applied on the range created from 0 to 100. So that will take it from a range object starting at 0, ending 100 to a list of all of the numbers between 0 and 100. And then we are mapping the noise method across every element of that list. So everything in that list should, as I say in a recent tutorial video, get a little bit noisy. Is that correct?
That is correct indeed. And also one additional bit of syntax. So you said we are mapping the method noise over the elements of this vector. So we also have, stop doing this, Vim.
I'm getting great enjoyment from Vim messing you up. Don't worry. Just a reminder that my VS Code syntax highlighting plugin is available on GitHub right here.
Okay. Operator sections. So you can also apply only one side of the operator. And this is creating a function that will take an argument and apply it as the second side of the operator. So, for example, I'm just going to start ignoring it. So +5 is a function that takes x and returns x plus 5.
We have a question you're going to really enjoy getting into from YouTube, Marcin.
What is it?
Is there any kind of universal function call syntax, or is bar.baz fundamentally different from baz-bar?
Yes, it is fundamentally different. And this is a great question. If you asked me the same question 2 weeks ago, I would say no, there is absolutely no difference between foo_bar and bar.foo. But we had to give up on that feature. It is very elegant to have universal function call syntax, and it allows you to build some very nice, very fluent APIs. However, it's also a massive food gun. for the reason that if everything is sort of dynamically typed and everything can become a method at any point, you cannot even tell the user that, oh, hey, this variable doesn't exist, because the variable may be dynamically bound somewhere down the line, which is not great. We sort of want to know when we are using things that do not exist. And another problem is that lines like, let's say, my HTTP request, response dot header. This is becoming tricky to write, because what does the header here refer to? Is it referring to the defined symbol header, or is it defining to the method header defined on my HTTP response? So for this reason, there is no universal function call syntax, and all there is methods are methods, values are values, and you apply methods using the dot operator.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. I hope that answers your question context free. We did have someone drop in who has definitely had their question answered by chat. But yeah, if you are watching, you're like, what is this code on the screen? This is a new language, relatively new anyway. I guess it's been in the works for years, but new for the sake of Twitch, language called Enso. That GitHub repo where you can find out more info if you are just joining us is here. There you go. Anyway, cool. Thank you for taking that detour. So you were just explaining operator sections.
Yes. So operator sections. We can apply only one side of the operator. So we can also apply the other side of the operator going like this. Right, so this is going to be pretty much the same thing, a function that takes an x and returns 5 plus x, which doesn't matter for plus, but it might matter for other operators, right? Like not operators can have their arguments swapped around. And this also combines with the different precedence depending on spacing. So I can also create an operator section in certain contexts by just going +5 or 5 plus. This is let's look at an example that still uses a plus. So I can go map, and now I want to add plus to each element of that vector. So I can do this. That is completely fine and acceptable. But also I can use the precedence changing with spacing, and I can do this. Those are the exact same code semantically. Now,
Very cool.
with this explained, we can also explain what dot noise is. That is just a function that takes x and returns x.noise, because this is just another operator section. Right. Wonderful. So I think with 30 lines of comments, we have explained what the default workspace is doing.
Perfect.
Where should we go now?
That's a good question. So one of the things and again, like I'm going to throw this out here, but it might not be appropriate. One of the things we do in the tutorial videos, which are on our YouTube, but will also be going out with the test and distribution, is we refer to a type we construct, Geo Point. Are you aware of what I'm talking about? Do you want to talk about defining types, if that's what's happening in that example, if I remember correctly?
That is what is happening in that example. Cool. Exactly. Okay, so defining types. Actually, no, let's keep it going down. Okay, so how do you define a type, and what even is a type? We sometimes use the name atoms for our types, and if you have ever used a language like Scala or Haskell, those will be somewhat familiar. So,
you got really close to the mic and it went really ASMR-y when you said Scala and Haskell, and just it's perfect.
Okay, we should make that, I think. Well, tune in next week.
Enso ASMR. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to completely interrupt you. I just had to enjoy that. Go ahead.
Okay, type definitions. So in the tutorial that we've posted on YouTube, there is a type being defined. It's called Geo Point, and it has two fields called latitude and longitude. So what it does, it sort of creates a container that is able of storing two different values, one under the name latitude, the second under the name longitude. and they can be jointly referred to as a Geo Point. So let's define a method that we will actually use Geo Point in for a while, and talk about pattern matching and all that nice stuff. So first of all, we can create a Geo Point. My point is Geo Point of latitude somewhere around 52.05 and 15.2. I think this is somewhere in Poland, but not sure where. So yeah, this is how you create an instance of a type. So you now have a value in my point. You have a value. You can say that this value has the type Geo Point, and it also stores two values in it. One of them being the latitude, a concrete number associated with the latitude, and a concrete number associated with the longitude. What else can we do? We can use getters. So I can go my latitude equals my point dot latitude, and I can go my longitude is my point dot longitude. So I'm just plucking out the values for latitude and longitude from the point we have created. And there is also pattern matching.
Sorry, I'm being very quiet because I'm answering questions in the background.
That's okay.
First of all, viewers, if you find the choice of music as offensive as Ara does, let me know and I'll find another royalty-free Spotify playlist. But for now, we're going to have our royalty-free lo-fi music and we're going to enjoy it. And Wojtek, I will get you. You can post links in this chat. We don't have auto-filter on for links. If you wanted to share a link to something and you're having trouble, drop me a message at the enso_org handle and I will sort you out.
Okay, does this explain types to you for now? Like what an algebraic data type is, what an atom is, how can you create one, how can you destructure one, and access its fields?
It does for me, but I'm conscious I'm a little bit familiar with that anyway because of my background. So if anyone is not aware, please let us know. But it sounds, I'm not seeing any comments about it right now. We are getting questions about Polyglot, which I don't know if we'll get into in this learn X and Y, but that's probably a thing a little bit further down if you want to get into that, unless you want to take a detour and do it now while there's questions about it.
Well, yeah, if people are interested, I'm happy to talk about Polyglot.
Yeah. So Damo Twitch is asking a question about Polyglot, mostly because Wojtek has written a thesis in the chat about it. So let's go through and show some how you call some functions in other languages.
Okay, so let's start with. Okay, this is really tricky, and if you are downloading, I would have to fork here. If have one version for if you are downloading Enso today, and another for when you are downloading Enso a week from now, because there is going to be significant changes. So I will probably just document both for the benefit of our wonderful viewers who really want to try it today. So let's start with Polyglot Java. Polyglot Java is actually the only thing that exists in packages that you can download today. So I will also show how to do JS and so on. But this can only be done a week from now. Essentially, you just caught me in a task that I am working actively on right now. So
which is the most exciting thing about being part of Enso right now, is things are still changing, and you can and this is especially relevant at the end of the stream. We'll tell you how to get on the tester list. You can tell us what you want us to do and it might happen. Sorry, Ara and Marcin, for making that promise.
Okay, so how do you import a Java class? Let's say you have some Java classes defined. You just go Polyglot Java import com example my class. Now the symbol my class is now available in scope. I can use it as if it was an Enso value, which is great. So let's create another function. Polytest is we can call a static method. So we just go result equals my class dot static of arg1, arg2, So you will notice that, well, static is not a valid method name in Java, is it? Let's call it static method. You will notice that I'm passing the arguments in a vector. This is the difference between today and a week from now. So
Okay.
this is today.
Right.
And when I get to actually finish my pull request, this is going to be a week from now. So you can see that a week from now, the difference in calling a Java method and calling an Enso method will just completely and utterly disappear. You will be able to call a Java method as though it was defined in Enso without having to worry about wrapping the arguments in a vector. So that's coming soon. For now,
Very cool.
You can really do this. I can actually, like, if people are interested in Polyglot, we can probably go to the standard library and like look at how it's actually being used, because it is actively used. Most of our standard library, like the really low level parts of our standard library, are all developed using this system.
Yeah, which is also kind of funny, like, you know, like the low level parts of our standard library polyglotting through to high level languages for the functionality, which is, you know, a super cool way of allowing us to iterate very quickly on the standard library.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you can see that I have a directory called Polyglot in my base that contains a few jars. So if your project structure looks like this, if you have a directory called polyglot/java, and then you have a bunch of jars in that directory, those will be automatically available to you. So you can just drop your pre-existing Java code into this directory and then import it as though it was Enso, which is amazing. Let's maybe look at text. So how we implement different operations on the primitive text type. So whenever you I guess we haven't showed that in the LearnX in my workspace.
It's okay to jump around a little bit. It's all good.
This is how you create a text, right? And then there is a bunch of things that you may want to do with a text. For example, know how many characters are in the text. This is a very non-trivial problem because UTF exists. However, every non-trivial problem has already been solved in Java. So we just import the class break iterator coming from the IBM ICU package, which is the UTF support library. And you can see that we are calling, like, for example, calling a static method on it, and calling an instance method on the instance that we got from this static method, and calling more instance methods, and so on and so on. So a lot of our standard library actually looks like this, where there is some underlying Java library, and we are just calling into it from Enso and doing some logic in Enso, some logic in Java, trying to do as much as possible in pure Enso, of course. So yeah, that is how we use Polyglot Java internally. This is how you will use Polyglot Java a week from now.
Perfect.
We can also, what else can we do? We can create an instance. So call a constructor. And this shouldn't be really surprising. We just have a special method called new that takes a bunch of arguments. And there is a bug in the language that forces you to write to array in this. So this is today. And let me declutter everything. This is a week from now. And then you can, my instance, let's rename it. And then you can also call methods. Vim is really annoying today. You can also call an instance method, which is pretty much the same as this here, except we are going to call it on myInst. So myInst.myMethod 1, 2, 3. And again, this is what it is like today. And this is future, or a week from now, as I was saying before. So yeah, this is how you use Polyglot. Now there is a few technical details I would like to maybe like just mention here for the people that are actually interested, and it's about
Which should be everyone.
which is about data marshalling. So long story short, there is almost no data marshalling. If you create an array in Java and you put it into Enso, Enso is just going to believe it has an Enso array without actually having to copy the array. Moreover, you can pass a function from Enso into Java. So, for example, if you are using Java streams and you want to filter a Java list, you can just use the filter method on streams, passing it an Enso function. You can also pass any type from Java, so from Enso into Java, assuming that your function is expecting an interface. So if you had a Java interface called Geo Point that would define the methods latitude and longitude, returning numbers, you can then pass an instance of this. So you can pass my point into Java, and Java will believe that this actually implements that interface. So there is like the integration goes very deep and with no copying of data. So cool. That's very exciting and very useful in actual use cases that we have in our standard library and other examples.
Sorry, everyone. I'm being very quiet and leaving Marcin to host himself because I'm trying to fix something in the background here. Apologies. Marcin's got you well taken care of.
Right. And I will show you this, but this is all future, right? So none of this really exists yet. Some of it will exist a week from now.
Cool. So, quick question. Let's take a detour just before you get into that. Is Enso curried? How will it work with the new polyglot syntax?
Right. Who is asking that question? Is it my team setting me up, or is it?
Not unless someone is called Grim Tuesday. Okay. Are you getting really trolly questions now?
I'm asking because this is really a great question. So how Enso is carried and methods defined in Enso are carried, and with those changes, what is going to happen is that polyglot calls are not going to be carried. So if you are calling into polyglot, you will just have to pass the precise number of arguments that needs to be applied to this call, and you have to explicitly create a lambda if you actually want a carried version, which is not great. Like I'm kind of sad about this state of affairs, but at the same time, you have to understand the impedance mismatch between Enso and other languages. So, for example, Java, like you can never implement Java semantics with carrying because functions in Java can take different numbers of arguments, so you never know what you are actually calling. There may be a method in Java with the same name that takes 2 arguments, and another that takes 3, and another that takes 0. So you really have to be wary of this. So yeah, the answer is carrying with polyglot calls will just be disabled.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you. So you were talking about things that will be in polyglot in the near future.
Right. So polyglot other languages, which means R, Python, Ruby, or JS, or whatever the Truffle team implements next, which also includes things like WASM. I think you can actually run some WASM in Enso. I haven't tried, but you should be able to do it in principle. So anyway, the syntax for this is going to be quite different. It's going to be foreign R, for example, if we are writing in R, my function arg1, arg2 equals, and here we do R stuff. So let's just say, I don't know, we take some library and we do something like print histogram of arg1 against arg2. I have no idea if this is valid R, but you can imagine. And also you can do something like...
Feel free to heckle the R in chat if there's any R developers lurking about.
I can actually show you some working examples of this syntax as well, so I will do that.
Do you have your really crazy, like, what's that Quine? Your like Quine-esque example? The way like you you call a function R that calls a function in Java that calls a function in Python all the way through.
Oh no, I removed that one. That was not. But I can show you. So yeah, this code actually works and actually displays two R windows with two different plots. So I'm calling into R and I'm doing some stuff with ggplot, and I'm creating a data frame in pure Enso, and then I'm converting it to R, and then I'm running R functions on it, displaying R plots based on that. So you can see that the syntax I'm showing you in that file is actually already implemented, just not very well working at this point. It requires much more thought from my side. You can also do the same thing with JS, let's say, right? So you can go mk object arg1 arg2. Also, Joe, about that example, I thought I posted it in our Discord on the engine channel, so you can probably show an image of that.
Yeah,
if you want to.
I'll find it while you are doing what you're doing. Then I will throw it up. I might. I'm very sorry, viewers. I know you're enjoying the music so much, but it may briefly go away for a minute because I'm having technical problems with one of the machines with which I'm currently streaming, so I might have to restart that machine. But before I do that, let me find this screenshot for you. Once I'm scrolling back through a year's worth of Discord history. Come on, it's only the other day. Where is it gone?
Right. So when you define something like this in R or JS, you just call it as though it was an Enso function. It actually is an Enso function, including the fact that that this is actually carried because we have access to the definition of this function. We know how many arguments are expected. Therefore, we can actually carry this call. 3 4 call just like Enso, everything is carried. Also, I'm using the variable here right now. That is probably a good idea to go back to basics soon. Yeah,
absolutely. That sounds good. I mean, for example, we spoke about Lambdas a little bit and didn't even. I don't think we've mentioned those above yet.
Yeah.
No, this has been. I think this has been a great little detour considering people in chat were asking about that. So thank you.
Sure. Like if people are interested in something, it's probably better than just talk into the void. Okay.
For sure. That's what we're on Twitch for. We could have just done this offline, but no. If you have questions, folks, we're happy to take the detour for what you are here for. I can see there's still 30 odd of you here. So if you have questions about what you're seeing, take advantage of this time that we have with Marcin. We would love to answer your questions. Alrighty, moving on.
Right, where were we? Oh, let's talk about Lambdas. So we've talked about operator sections, which is one way of creating a function out of thin air, right? And so Enso is fundamentally a functional language, which means creating and passing functions around is really easy. And this is like a lot of our APIs actually expect functions as arguments, and will use them to process your data in whatever ways you want. So we already talked about the map method. And the map method takes a vector and it takes a function, and then it applies the function to each element in that vector and gives you back the result. So let's talk about all the different kinds of things that we can pass to a map function. So we already saw operator sections. Now let's talk about the most general form of a lambda. So lambdas are created with this operator. And we have arguments go on the left, the result goes on the right. So for example, if we have 123.map, we can create a lambda that takes an argument. That argument is called x. It goes on the left hand side of the arrow, and then we go x times 5. and return this. So this will take this map call. So we have a lambda that takes an argument and multiplies it by 5. And then this map function takes the lambda as an argument and applies it to every single item in this vector. There is also one bit of syntax that is very useful, particularly when you are coding in text, which is the fact that you can glue the arrow to the argument name, and this allows you to just open a block that is indented and write some more involved logic here. So here I could do something like y equals x times 5, z equals y plus 3, and then I can return z. So if your lambda needs to do some more stuff in it, you can use it like that. And it also works.
I think that actually answers a troll question that we just got from the team, which is how we do multi-argument lambdas. So well done preempting that.
Multi-argument lambdas. We just stack more arguments in them.
Perfect.
This is a lambda that takes 3 arguments called z, y, and x, and returns something. Actually doesn't compile because I am shadowing y and z. Like I'm reassigning to an argument, which is illegal. But if that was called iy1 and this was z1 and this was y1 and this was z1, then everything would work again. Right. Also, you can, if you are using the shorter, the single line syntax, you don't really mind parenthesizing that. You may also do something like 1, 2, 3 dot, and let's use reduce this time. X, y, x plus y. So yeah, if you want more arguments, just stick more arrows in it, in the lambda expression. Right. So we now have lambdas, which is an important part of the language. Maybe let's move on to defining methods then.
Sorry to nitpick your sound again. Where is your microphone? I think you keep hitting
Right.
it.
Right. I may be hitting it.
Okay,
yes.
cool. It's gonna be a little bassy rumble every now and then, but cool.
I'm just so excited.
Yeah, beautifully. So sorry, I completely interrupted where you were going next.
Okay, so I'm thinking we should talk about method definitions.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
So we already have a method like main defined here. But let's create something more involved. Let's create a method that will actually take arguments. Now, how do you take arguments to a method? You just list them. So you just go arg1, arg2, you go equals, and here is the body. You start defining the body of your method. So you can, for example, go println arg1 and println arg2, and then return arg1 plus arg2. So this is an important point that was also visible in the Lambdas example. So let's state it explicitly. The last line in a block of code is the return value.
Sorry, if anyone just saw me panic, I've just restarted my machine that made the loudest MacBook starting noise ever. The music will be back very shortly, folks. Sorry, Marcin, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a multi-line lambda here. The last line of this lambda is z1, which means z1 will be the return value. Similarly, here we have a block. We have a block for the my method, and arg1 plus arg2 is going to be the return value from this method. Now, how do you call a method? Well, you call it with a dot calling a method. What is the argument to the method? Like what is the method actually defined on? Because we have defined it in the top level of this file, it's defined on the current module, which means we and we are in another method that is also defined on the current module. So you can call the method with this dot my method arg1 arg2. Well, let's just pass real values. So that was not good. So this refers to whatever the current method is called on. So we are in a method that is called on the current module. So this also refers to the current module. However, because of a feature that I'm going to jump into like in a few minutes, I'm going to show you also this syntax. So you can go here dot my method, and in this example here, always refers to the current module. Why is this important? Because Enso has the notion of extension methods. So you can also define methods on existing types. So for example, you can define a method on the Geo Point type that we have defined here. Geo point.myMethod equals, let's say this dot latitude times this dot longitude. I don't know why anyone would ever multiply latitude by longitude, don't ask me, but this is what we are doing. So this is defining a method on an atom. We are defining a method on the type that we have defined in the same file, and now this.
We do have, in one of our tutorial videos, we do have a moment where you need to convert latitude and longitude from milli-arc seconds to degrees by dividing it by 3,600,000. So we could make a method to do that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I think our maps need it in degrees, and one of the APIs we're using has it in milli-arc seconds for some reason.
Yes, it does that. Yeah, that makes more sense. So let's do that. Convert. So we want to return a new Geo Point because we are converting both parts of this. We want to divide this by 360 with however many zeros. I think 3 more. We don't want to multiply anymore, and we divide again by the same large number. Okay, and this refers to the Geo Point object. But if I have a helper defined, like for example I have one here. Wait. Let's assign this to result and let's return the result, but also let's debug print both latitude and longitude. I already have a method that is able to print 2 things, and it's defined on my module and not on the instance of GeoPoint. So this is where here comes into play. So I can go here dot my method of let's say result.latitude, result.longitude, and then here still refers to the current module. Right. So this distinction between this and here, it disappears in methods that are defined on the current module, because this and here are the same thing. But if you are defining a method of something else, then this will be the thing you are defining the method on, and here will be where the method is being defined, sort of geographically, like in the current module. And since we already defined the method on a type, we can also call it here. So calling a method on value. We can go myPoint.convert. Okay, is this clear, Joe? If you were to use here and this now, would you be confused?
No, I don't think so. Not. I probably shouldn't, wade into this in the stream, but like coming from the many multifaceted lives of this in JavaScript, I like having the here, and I think this makes crystal clear sense.
Great, that's awesome. Okay, so what else was confusing to you? This was supposed to be schooling, so what else would you like to know about this language?
So far, so good. Let me have a think. Sorry, I just had to restart my computer, so I've been a little bit distracted. One thing that might be useful to go into that we do in the example video is dealing with the possibility of failure, errors, maybe types. In the example video, we have some JSON which we passed, and we then look for fields containing certain values to clean out some irrelevant data, and to check whether we got those, we use is nothing. So I guess it could be useful to dive into a little bit of that. Does that make sense?
It sort of does, although once again, this is an area that is going to be completely different a week
Yes,
from
we
now.
are having a lively discussion about that in chat right now, I do believe.
So yeah, let me quickly think about how to approach this best. Well, I will just assume that this document is happening a week from now.
Cool. I mean, also Ara has given it. If you want to talk about something else in the meantime, Ara said you could talk about shorthands for Lambda creation.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Right. So Lambda shorthands. So other than operator sections and the arrow syntax, one more thing you can do is you can use underscore as a sort of placeholder for the Lambda. If you are familiar with Scala, this syntax is essentially straight from Scala. If you are not familiar with Scala, let me show you this. My Lambda equals here dot my method underscore 2, and this is equivalent to Lambda x to here dot my method x5. You can use multiple underscores per method, so those will become consecutive arguments. So let's assume that my method was taking 3 arguments. I can go underscore underscore, or I can go underscore 6 underscore 5, and this is going to be equivalent to to a Lambda that takes 2 arguments.
Oh, that's really cool.
Y to x, and this is going to be, well, y is the first argument for whatever reason, so I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
Right. So you can do this, and this is a sort of nice shorthand in some circumstances. Although I personally don't use it that much, to be honest, because there is also named arguments calls, which is, I think, worth getting into right now. So we also have named and defaulted arguments, and this is, in my opinion, much more important than error handling for a newcomer to this language, because there's a lot of methods that take a lot of arguments. If you have ever seen any data science library, like for example worked with pandas, you will see a function that takes 15 different arguments, and you usually do not pass all of them, because if you would, that would be quite useless. So anticipating such libraries existing in the language and actively creating such libraries in the language, we have a system for defaulted arguments, and we have a system for calling arguments by name. So let's say we have a method that's called drawCircle, and it takes a radius that is defaulted to 1, and it takes a color that is defaulted to red, and it takes an x position that is 0 and y position that is also 0 by default. Right. So let's start by, actually let's move it below the simpler method definition.
Perfect.
So first of all, what happened here? We have the same syntax we've had before, right? So we have method name, argument equals, except we have more equals this time around, because we are providing default values for the arguments. And in the body of this function, those are always guaranteed to have a value, right? So color is never going to be some sort of an invalid value. It's whatever the user passes, or red if they do not pass it. So there's some implementation goes here. And now how do you call this? So calling a method with default arguments by name. So now you can just go my circle 1 equals here dot draw circle, and you can only pass the x position, and you can pass it by name. So you can go x position equals 37. And you can also
Right.
decide that now the radius should be 7.
But if you didn't put that, the radius would default to 1 without you having to do anything with the parameter.
Exactly. So first of all, you can notice that I'm calling the arguments out of order. I'm passing x position before radius, even though in the definition radius is defined as the first argument. This doesn't matter because I'm only using names to pass the arguments, and any argument I have not passed is going to be defaulted. So this is equivalent to calling here dot draw circle with 7 red, x position is 37 and y position is the default 0. I can also pass those defaulted arguments by position, in which case they are just going to be called in the order of definition. So I can go here dot draw circle 36. It is what it is. Blue, and I'm only passing 2 arguments, and so the 2 arguments I have not passed are going to be assumed defaulted, which means this is equivalent to here dot draw circle 36 blue 0 0. And there's also a syntax that allows me to not call the defaulted argument. So if I want to create a lambda that would still take some arguments, and I want to actually carry this definition, because if you look at this right now, this sort of breaks carrying, right? I'm passing 2 arguments. So if you expected carrying to fully work, you would expect x position and y position to just be left unapplied and the whole thing to be a two argument function. However, this is not so useful if you have many defaulted arguments. So we have special syntax for that. My circle, let's call it factory, because we are all Java developers at heart.
I had to laugh. You've been too deep in the source there, Marcin. I need to save you from your Java background.
I can use the 3 dots operator, and the 3 dots operator essentially means do not use defaulted arguments for this call. Whatever they are, just ignore them. So this is going to be equivalent to x to y. Here dot draw circle 36 blue xy. Well, actually, those also get defaulted, right? So it's going to be more like x equals 0 and y equals 0. I'm not actually sure. And by the way, as I'm showing you here inadvertently, you can also use defaulted arguments in lambdas. You can use defaulted arguments wherever arguments are being used, meaning you can also use them in type definitions. So you can do something like
super interesting.
You can go latitude, longitude, and then whatever shape equals star. This is also allowed.
Huh. Okay, cool. Very nice. Wonderful.
Okay, so we have defaulted arguments, we have named arguments.
We're doing good on. We've got about 40 minutes to half an hour left. Still plenty of time for any questions anyone has them. As I said, towards the end of the stream, we will show where we're currently at with the visual IDE and make sure that you know where to get it, how to get on the list to get it as soon as we send out the new batteries included packages, as I've been calling them this week. Oh, that was a really good water noise. But yeah, if you have any, I know I've kind of lost track of the conversation going on in the sidebar. It looks like Ara and Wojtek got to all the questions, but if there's anything we've missed, feel free to throw it in again, both on YouTube and Twitch. We're watching both chats. So one thing that's relevant, I don't know if this is, I think it'd be useful to have in this is like maybe some usage of the data types that are included in or the collections rather that are included in the standard library. As you know, I had some stupidity with creating vectors earlier, not realizing, that I could just use some syntax that was already included. If you want to mess around with that a little bit?
Yes, let's do that. Let's create a whole new section for ourselves. Built-in data types. Data types equals, and let's go. Okay, so let's start with the simplest of them. We have numbers. So we have integers. Integer equals 6, and we have a decimal, which can be something like 78.23, and you can do the things that you expect from numbers with those. You can add them, you can divide them, you can essentially all of arithmetic operations and all of things like computing a sign function, for example. That's allowed. We also have texts. So a text sample is something like, this is my text. Now there is actually some subtlety going on with the kinds of quotes that you use. So double quoted texts are the ones that you shouldn't really be using that much, and those are for raw text. So for example, things like \n, which normally would insert a new line into a string in most languages. This is just going to verbatim paste the characters / and the character n into your string, while if you want to use escape characters like this, you use the single quoted strings. So single quoted strings are usually the better default, unless you are doing something that looks very syntaxy. So for example, if you are typing out JSON by hand, it's probably better to use the double quotes for the unescaped version of everything.
Right.
There is also a block. Yeah,
sorry, just answering chat. Grimcheese State, we don't currently have our own package manager. When it comes to publishing and versioning packages, actually, we probably should talk about exporting at some point. But when it comes to packages, basically right now you can create a project, put that in your Enso environment and load the project. And that's basically the state of the art, I believe, at the moment. I might be wrong.
No, you are not wrong.
Okay.
There is no package management yet.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if someone wants to become, Crates was a third-party project in Rust, and now look where it is. That could be you, viewers. That could be you.
Yeah, there's a lot of low-hanging fruits in any new programming language. You can think about it. You can be the hero. You can be the person that created the package manager. Those people are always respected.
Love to chat to you about that if that is something someone is interested in doing.
Right. There is also a block syntax for texts that is again being to be controversial, and I know that people hate it at first, but then they love it.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what happened with me. So I'm going to take myself as a proxy for all people. A text block starts with 3 quotes, either single quotes or double quotes, and the rules are the same as they were before. So single quotes take escape characters, and you should use single quotes by default. And here I'm just, my text can have multiple lines now. The controversial bit about this is that this is unterminated. Like, this is it. You don't close the free parentheses, the free quotes, because why would you? So here you go back to writing normal Enso. And this creates a multi-line text. It also strips all the white space from the first line. So it's going to look like this is the actual text that you are going to get, the block that starts on this line. So this is very handy if you have a larger literal to write out. For example, if you want to paste some JSON verbatim in your files, you can just do it using those multi-line text literals. And this is pretty nifty. Right, what can you do with texts? Well, you can add text together. So concat equals text sample, sample plus text block. Now this is just a technical thing, but this can be surprising to some people. Plus on texts is actually fast and preferred. So for many languages, you will encounter notices like, yeah, you can concatenate strings with plus, but this is going to be the slow path. This is going to like have bad computational complexity or whatever. We have decided to change that. So if you want to concatenate texts, just use plus like you would on numbers.
Right.
What else can you do? You can get characters, so you can go text dot characters, and this is going to return a list of strings that are single character as defined by the UTF standard. Right? So for example, if your text contained an emoji, you will just get a single character being the emoji, and not a bunch of cryptic code points that you would normally get from most other languages, except for Swift. Kudos to Swift for getting this right.
Hey, who when writing C, who could have anticipated emoji? How the times have changed.
Well, I mean, when writing C, they didn't even anticipate any language other than English, I believe. You could have anticipated that like Chinese exists.
Yeah, that's a fair criticism of the the Latin alphabet-centric nature of programming.
Anyway, okay. Let's say we are done with texts. Now, vectors.
Cool.
Vectors. So, first of all, you can create with square brackets. So my vec equals 1, 2, 3. They can also, they are heterogeneous, so you can also go my vec equals 1, foo, and false, which also brings my attention to the fact that we haven't talked about Booleans.
Who needs Booleans?
And ifs. Yeah, that would be quite useful. Okay. So you can create vectors like this. You can also create vectors from other operations, right? So a vector is the basic container for essentially a sequence of things. So for example, text.characters. This is also a vector. Or the example that we actually have at the top of this file, 1 up to 100 dot to vector. This is a vector that is 1, 2, blah, 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 until I think 99 or maybe 100. I never remember with those
whether
APIs.
it's inclusive or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is exclusive. I think this is correct, actually. Okay, so we've got vectors. Let's go back and let's talk about Booleans. So my true equals true, my false equals false. So those are just the two values that are in the type Boolean. You can do all the things that you expect from Booleans with the syntax that you probably also expect if you have ever seen one of the mainstream languages. So you can go true or false. You cannot go not true. You have to go true dot not. So not is a method.
Right.
And also the most important operator on any Boolean is if then else. So if my condition then do something of 1 and else do a different thing with the argument of 2.
Sorry, I completely missed the question. Hey, Lambda. Yeah, so we're Marcin's walking us through basic Enso in the pattern of a learn X in Y. I realize I should actually probably post that tutorial in the chat so everyone knows what we're talking about. But yeah, the goal here is to produce a little basic reference document for anyone who's writing Enso so they can jump straight into the language with some examples. Here is what we are trying to. I'm on the Windows and I don't have a command key. Anyway, sorry, Marcin, you continue and I'll paste this in.
Okay, then. Right. So this is Booleans. You can combine them, and you can. Oh, let's also talk about like what can return a Boolean, right? So like what are some of the functions that will give you a Boolean? So for example, my bool equals we can check if 1 equals to 2, or we can check if 2 is greater than 0.3. You can also check with, I don't know, the string foo is equal to the string bar. Hint, they are not. Okay, so this is Booleans. We have Booleans, we have vectors, and I guess the last noteworthy type is a map. So we also have those in the language. So you can create an empty map by calling map.empty. You can insert inserted. So you can go empty map.insert for foo and 5 bar. For now, unfortunately, the keys have to be of the same type, right? So if you insert a number into the map,
you have to use some keys.
all the keys have to be numbers. If you insert a text,
right,
all the keys, and this is an ordered map. We are actually going to probably swap out the representation of this into a hash map, but this is something for future us. And then item equals inserted.get 4, and this is going to returns foo, and also item 2 equals inserted.get 10, and this returns nothing this week. Or a special error value that I'm going to talk about. Well, let's just call it, or a data flow error, starting next week.
I was muted. Grim Tuesday asks, are map also heterogeneous vectors?
Value-wise, yes. Key-wise, no. So keys are homogeneous. For now, when we switch it to using hash maps, keys are also going to be heterogeneous. But yeah, actually, let me do that. Right. So let's also talk about the data flow errors. Maybe not in the data structures section. Let's create a new section for ourselves.
And data flow errors are another thing that's kind of next week. Am I right in that? Or
yes, this is a thing that is next week, but might as well talk about them since they already came up when we were talking about maps, right?
For sure.
Okay, so you can go foo equals error throw foo. I don't know if this is actually going to be called throw. It is called throw for now. So this creates what is called a data flow error, and also all of this next week. Like don't even try using this API now, or try and fail. That's up to you. But anyway, this creates a data flow error. It doesn't actually throw it, which is why I had a slight hang up about this being called throw. This is a value, but this is a value that has a few very special properties. One of them being that if you use it, if you call any method on it, except for one method that I will be talking about in a second, if you call any method, so like if we go foo.myMethod returns foo. So it doesn't even try to call my method. It just goes, oh, okay, you are calling something on an error. This is still going to be an error. So those errors have the tendency to propagate through the graph. If you pattern match on such an error, right? So match result equals case foo of, and let's say we expect nothing. If it's nothing, we return true. If it's true, we return false. And if it's false, we return nothing. Right? What is going to be stored in match result right now? So normally it would be if foo was a normal value, let's say foo was equal to 11, then this would just be an inexhaustive pattern match, which is another error. But With this, it's actually going to be match result is foo again. So we are trying to pattern match on an error, and we just go, nope, you are not we are not even going to attempt doing that. We are just going to return the original value. Same goes, for example, for addition, right? So foo plus 5, what is it? You are adding an error to a 5. This is foo again, right? So it seems like the foo value is just going to be with us forever, except for one method that is going to save us all. Save us all equals foo.catch, and catch takes a function, error value to, let's say error value plus, we're safe now. So this is going to save us all, is at this point it's the string foo, we're safe now. It's also important to note what happens if you call the catch method on something that is not an error. So let's say let's say we have 10.catch x to x plus 5. What do you think the value of this is going to be? Right, so x, well, y, let's call it y. What do you think y is going to be? It may seem that it should add the 5 to x, so to 10, but no. If the value is not an error, then this is a no-op. So this behaves the way everything else behaves on errors. Catch behaves on non-errors. So
got you. So we'll just return. Okay.
Yeah. So y is 10. Catch is no-op.
Marcin, I've just discovered the most embarrassing reason that Twitch code earlier didn't work. So the example does now work, and it's really stupid. And I'm going to have to tell Ara, because I was just trying to get her to solve the problem in the background. But we'll show that in a minute. I've got.
Okay.
The good thing is I've now got some exciting stuff working in the IDE for us to see at the end of the stream.
I'm very interested to know what was wrong with that.
Oh, it's so embarrassing.
that this makes me even more interested. Right, so we have data flow errors covered. Right, let me just go through all of this file and see what was covered and what was not. So we have basic function calling, we have Lambda creation, we have defaulted and named arguments. We have creating a simple type and a method on a simple type. We have some polyglot previews, basic data types errors. So one more thing that is missing is sum types, in my opinion.
Sure.
And then I will just transfer to you and watch Twitch API go brr.
Well, hopefully I'm still having a problem, but we're getting there.
Right. So let's create a new type that is called one or another. Now, previously we have defined the type just by providing its name. Where was it? Yeah, here. We just provided a name and a bunch of arguments, and this already created a type that we could instantiate. This is going to be a bit more involved. So we have a type called one or another, and we are going to give it two constructors. So this is going to be either one type or another type, as the name would suggest. So one value type, another value. What this does, it essentially creates two different types for us. One type called one and another type called another. Both of them store, well, let's give this one a few more arguments. So one stores a single value under the name value, another stores two values, one is called value x, another is called value y. And we can also define methods on both of those types at the same time. So my method of let's call it v, and now what is this going to be in the body of this method? Well, it's either going to be one or it's going to be another. So of course we can call other methods on those objects if there are common methods between them, but we can also pattern match, and this is the important bit. because I don't think we have shown a branching pattern match. So this
I'm
is
so excited.
For what?
I had pattern matching. I think you were on the stream when I had this rant that I realized that actually most of what I loved about Haskell is actually just pattern matching, and I really just wanted a far simpler language that had pattern matching. And so I'm very excited that we have exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, also one nice thing about it. Well, okay, let me finish this example and let's talk about what's cool about this pattern matching, what I really like. We have Vx, we have Vy, and we can go V times Vx times Vy. Right, so what this is going to do is it's going to check if this was 1 or if it was another. If it was 1, it's also going to plug the value that it's stored in it and then return something times this value. If it was another, it's going to plug both of those fields and again operate on this. So this is sort of an if plus a bunch of getters, if you think about it, right? Like it's checking what is the constructor that was used for this value and also what are the values of the fields. Those are of course nested, so you can also, for example, match on 1 false, where you expect now I guess we should make this more Boolean now. Right, so let's say we know that we have a 1 that is either containing a false or a true, so we can also do a multi-branch pattern match and match separately on 1 with the value being false or 1 with the value being true. The cool thing about this compared to Haskell is that you can pattern match because we don't have sum types as Haskell defines them. So in Haskell, when you define a data type, right, it has a bunch of constructors, and this is like a closed set of constructors. You can only use those few constructors, right?
Yes.
Enso allows you to mix and match existing types into new types without wrapping them in anything. So it's completely okay to have a type that is something like true or 13 or foo, right? Like this is a valid type in Enso. I expect a value that is one of those 3 things, and then you could pattern match on this just by going case v of, right? And if it was true, you do something, and so on and so on. So you are not closed to as to what can be passed into a pattern match. Pretty much anything goes. So yeah, that is pattern matching, and that is nested type definitions.
Perfect.
Right.
How are you feeling about our coverage?
I feel like it shows something. It definitely is not everything that there is to know about the language, but it's a good start.
I think it covers. I'm happy because it covers everything we do in our 2.101 tutorials. Ara said we also have panics, which are asynchronous exceptions. Do you want to go into that briefly, or should we save that for another day?
I can go to panics, although like So there is 2 stories about panics.
Sure.
Panics are asynchronous exceptions that you know from other programming languages, right? So sometimes something goes really wrong in your code, and you just want to go abort, I give up, like just go back to safety. This is where you would use a panic as a library author. So for example, you are trying to connect to a database, but the database doesn't exist, right? So you don't really want to call any other code on that database, because if it already doesn't exist, something went horribly wrong. You just want to abort everything and run away screaming, which is where you go panic.throw help, right? You can catch a panic on a lazy argument. So we haven't talked about lazy arguments. That's for future us to worry about.
That's totally
but you
fine.
can go panic.recover here.myMethod. This is going to, if here.myMethod throws an error, if here.myMethod throws a panic, this results in a data flow error. So this is how you handle them. So if you want to go, actually I might be able to help you, you go panic.recover, and then you use this. So cool. This is the story that actually explains what to do with panics and how to use panics as a library author. Pretty much use them sparingly. And also for the more end user story, if you see a panic, that means you have made a mistake and you should fix that mistake, or something, or there is a bug somewhere and you should report that bug. For a user of our IDE, if you are just going to work with like some data processing and so on and so forth, you probably just want to fix your mistake or tell someone else they've made a mistake. There aren't really good reasons for you to be catching panics.
Right. Cool. That's perfect. Awesome. And yeah, I think that's useful to throw out because, I mean, being a dual textual and visual language, I think a lot of users using data applications are going to jump straight into the visual. But one of the things we've spoken about being very exciting for the textual users, which we'll show in future live streams, is being a library author. I think that's going to be a big driving use case of the textual language in these early days. So yes, I'm glad we covered this.
And as we talked about, for example, creating a web server library, there are situations when you are creating a web server where you just want to abort and shut down and go, okay, like everything is wrong, I'm being DDoSed and whatever else, right? This is where you use a panic as a library author.
Cool. Perfect. Okay, awesome. We're good. Anything else you want to throw into this one for now, or are we good?
No, I think let's just stick it somewhere and keep it growing.
Yeah, so what we'll do with this, we'll throw it after the show. We'll throw it up on the Enso org somewhere, and I will also we'll also work on getting it onto learnxinYminutes.com. We'll go through the pull request for that. It probably needs more iteration before we merge it.
Definitely some cleanup.
Yeah. But in the meanwhile, we'll make it available for everyone who wants to hack around on Enso. We will show a little bit of the visual IDE now, but before we do that, I want to talk about a little bit, what we're planning to do on this stream in textual Enso in the weeks to come. So we are going to be live at this time every Tuesday, currently until March 2nd. We're calling this Season 1 because we're Netflix now. And so Season 1, a lot of what we're planning to do is talk about the textual language and, the development behind it, and also building some cool utilities. So Marcin just mentioned building a web server library. This is my fault because I participate a lot in this very silly programming game called Battlesnake, where you write snakes in a language to kind of fight each other. And the way that works is a Battlesnake is a web server that you send requests to. And so I've wanted to write a Battlesnake in Enso for the longest time. And so I'm going to make Marcin write me a web server library so that I can do that. So next week on Tuesday, if you're like, oh, how do I write a library in Enso? How do I author my own libraries? Next Tuesday at this time, so that's 2 p.m. UTC, 3 p.m. European time, 9 a.m. Eastern time, we'll be back working on a library. And then the week after, if you've been in chat, you've probably seen a heap of answers from Ara. I do believe the week after is going to be Marcin and Ara talking about some of the aspects of Enso's design. And I believe it's going to be about introspection.
Yes. So,
cool.
So Ara had this idea to talk about how do you take a textual programming language and how do you make it beautiful, like you are going to show in a second, right? Because there is a lot of dark magic going on in the interpreter to make all of this fly together. So I think that was Ara's idea for that topic.
Perfect. So that'll be week after again, every Tuesday. The schedule is up on our Twitch. You can go to twitch.tv/Enso_org, and then you'll find it on the schedule page. And if anything changes with timings or which show is where, we will update it there. And of course, if you're not on our Discord, you totally should be. And we will announce that's not where you want to be going for that. Did I not add a banner for the Discord? Discord.gg/Enso. And you'll be able to get our notifications there. But for now, I guess I'll steal the screen share. So this is very exciting for me. As I said, this is a little API fetching example. The reason it's exciting is because I was trying to get this working immediately before the stream, which if you're an eagle-eyed viewer, you may have noticed we were a little bit late past the hour to be live, mainly because I was messing around with this for too long. Ta-da! Visual Enso. Let me resize this window a little bit. Because that's in a very tall medium. Perfect. And let's zoom in and move around. Visual Enso, everyone. So this is using a version of the Enso IDE, which is very close to being what we've been referring to as the tester package. So it will be out to people who have signed up to our testing list within... I think today, maybe, if not later this week, but I think today. If you are not on our tester list and you would like to get this package as soon as it's ready, for those of you who are familiar with Enso already, you can keep up with we're open source. Everything is developed in the open. You can download what Marcin has been showing today from the actions artifacts. You can go to the IDE repository and download the IDE in whatever state it's in. but we also are trying to get into a process of making these things more immediately accessible to people. So if you're signed up to our test list, you will get sent instructions for getting a version immediately. The easiest way to sign up to that tester list, thank you, Ara, for the Discord link. The easiest way to sign up to that tester list is via, there's the Discord link for anyone who missed that earlier. The easiest way to sign up to the tester list is via that Medium post that I've just dropped in the chat. That's our dev blog. So if you didn't know, every 2 weeks, we post about what the development teams have been up to, so you can keep up to date with the development. At the top of that post is a mailing list sign up for our test list. So you will get sent distributions of Enso that we want your feedback on. And this that's currently on the screen is one such distribution that's coming very soon. So this will be going out with the working IDE, and Marcin mentioned earlier that there's some magic going on, so you don't have to install Graal anymore. That is present in this. This is batteries included. You download this package. Everything's ready to go. If you've been following development, you might have done the process in the past where you start up the project manager and then you start up the IDE. None of that, one binary, and it downloads everything it needs and it's good to go. So this example. Marcin, do you want to know what's going wrong with this?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm very curious.
So what's happening here is this is calling the Twitch API to get the information about our Twitch channel. As you can see, we are live right now in this API request. How cool is that? The Twitch API doesn't have any authenticated endpoints. You need to have an OAuth token for to use any endpoint. And so I'm using Helix, which is their API gateway, and querying our show. So I needed to have an OAuth token and an app client ID for the app. I wanted to show this example without exposing my tokens to you all. So these are all in files, text files within my Enso project, and they're being loaded via this rather nifty Enso project.data, which Marcin showed me earlier. This is where the stupidity occurred, Marcin. Guess how I made those files?
With touch.
Yes, I touched to create them, and then I echoed the keys into them. It created a new line. And so there was a new line at the end of this key.
Right, yeah.
What I don't understand
is
why that was causing an error, but anyway, because I was getting an error before we got to the GET request. So really what should have happened is the GET request should have happened and said, hey, that's a bad key. But instead, something was going wrong before that. I guess you can't put new lines in headers, maybe. But anyway,
maybe we are using Java under the hood, obviously.
Yeah.
So maybe it already does some checking of those.
Yeah, possibly. But anyway, so here's a relatively neat example. This is going sideways. I've noticed in recent playing around that Enso looks best going down because of the geometry of the nodes. But I made this for the banner of our Twitch channel, so this example does go sideways. But there's a couple of cool things happening here. So you'll notice there's a lot of colors going on. These colors denote different types that are happening. So here we've got this teal for a file, and then we've got this slightly different green for the string being read from that file. This blue denotes the headers that are being constructed, and then we create a vector out of those two headers to give into our get. And so we've got a nice green for that. Creating these nodes is super nice. So most of how you use Enso is powered by the searcher, which is a name that I would love to change. We need a better name for this Swiss Army knife of Enso. But
I
currently,
think it was supposed to be called the Node Explorer at some point.
Yeah, it's difficult. We'll come up with something. I really like command palette, like from VS Code, but it doesn't quite capture everything it does. But anyway, the way you work in Enso is you start by pressing Tab anywhere on the canvas, and that opens up the searcher. And the searcher is kind of like your Enso Swiss Army knife. It shows you all of the functions that are currently available. It helps you find functions in context, what gives you hints in context of what you're doing, and it displays docs for what you've got. So like, for example, if I start typing HTTP, it will show me what's available on HTTP. For some reason, there's no docs available for GET. And so you can use this to explore. And I said it gives hints. So for example, if I were to go to like this file, which is this file string, and I wanted to read it, I can open the searcher here, which is colliding weirdly. I said tester build, folks. Feedback like this. The fact these things are colliding, that's what we want from you. So let me move that around so I can show this properly. Let's put this down here. So I can select this, and then when I press tab, you'll see it's giving me only functions which relate to the file type. So it knows like, hey, you've got a file selected. Let's get you stuff to work with that file. So I can scroll down to, for example, read, and then you see I've got the documentation for read.
I guess if you do the same thing on the http.get node, there are going to be actually interesting things that you can do with that.
Yeah, so this will be a JSON response, right? So here I can do, for example, response to JSON, and then I can start to, well, that will, you'll see here I've got JSON, and then I can, that's already going to be passed, so then I can start to do what our example goes into, which is, hang on, I don't want to do it wrong. You told us our code was bad in the chat, so I don't have to do fields, right?
Yes, you remove everything. Just go get and let's say body, right? Because that was
just get body. It's a string, right? Yeah, it's a field.
Yeah.
Perfect. And that will get me the request body. Perfect. And again, you see the colors changed here. We've got a nice blue. Well, not blue. Sorry, that must be.
That's HTTP response.
And the HTTP object, and the pink is the JSON. Yeah. Perfect. Oh, I've got a question. For early distribution, should I join Discord or mailing list? Great question, Weekend Div. Either. The mailing, if you join the Discord, we'll keep you up to date. There will be announcements when these things become available. But if the Discord is, I guess, kind of the intermediate step. If you want the testing distribution straight away, go for that Medium post that I shared above, this one right here, and sign up to that mailing list right away, and we'll get those to you. But if you're, getting testing distributions, you probably want to be on our Discord anyway, because the Discord is a great place to ask questions, to give your feedback. People who test it, thanks, Louder Dev. So glad. People who test it, we are also going to be making our calendars available for you. So if you have problems or you want to give feedback or you want to chat to someone about what you're seeing, sometimes it's much easier to work for a problem that you're having with something you're trying to build with someone. We will be doing feedback sessions that you can book via a Calendly link, so you can book them at a time that works for you. And we'll make sure you know where those are as well. I mentioned tutorials. Basically, we've got there are docs all over the place right now. Like the standard library docs are in either the searcher or they're in the definitions of the standard library in the repo. Mm-hmm. We have these dev docs, which are what the developers use. If you want to contribute to Enso or you want to keep up with development, the dev docs are a great tool for that. They also explain the language, and some things live in there currently. We've got these tutorial videos on YouTube. We haven't yet made a website that collates all of the info for an end user. So what we're doing for the people who sign up for the testing build is basically making all that available to you within our GitHub discussions. So on enso_org Enso, there'll be a discussion thread with all the info you need to test Enso, with all the docs, all the tutorials, and a place where you can instantly give feedback. So we'll be getting that up for you very shortly. Cool. So that more or less brings us to time. Oh, the office hours. I don't know if those have those been scheduled yet. I heard right before the stream that they were being scheduled. So another great reason you should be in our Discord. If you haven't used Discord, it's like Slack, except it has kind of you can have voice channels as well. So we're going to start doing office hours right in our Discord. Those will be happening, I think we said Wednesdays. I don't know what time. Louder Dev, I'll answer that in a minute, and you can't avoid the dark mode, people. We'll be doing office hours in the Enso Discord. So on a certain time in the week, we'll just be jumping into the voice channels in Enso to be there to answer any of your questions about the development or about using it, or just to get your feedback, or just to chat. And we'll make sure that we post the times of those on our Twitter, on our Discord, all those good places. So is there a dark mode? So Wojtek has been tagged. I don't know if Wojtek is still here. He's been very quiet. Enso does have themes. It is possible to enable some of these themes, I believe. They are in various... The dark mode one has some problems, is what I understand the current situation.
Yeah. There is going to be a dark mode and also a theme editor or something like that. But that is, let's call it the future. We are really working on getting the seamless version of the product to work. Yeah. We will. We obviously. Also, my disdain for dark mode comes from the endless engineering hours sunk into making everything black instead of a bright color. So there is themes. They are a priority because everyone on this team is obsessed with dark mode everything. So they will happen at some point, but we want to make sure the thing works before you make it a different color. Sorry. Also, one of the complaints that we constantly were getting with Luna was, why is there only dark mode? We need light more. We need light mode. Light mode should be the default. So yeah, I fully expect to get a lot of complaints about this not being dark by default this time around.
Yeah, for sure. We're good. Okay, cool. So that's it for this stream. So Thank you so much, Marcin, for that tutorial. We'll get that code up, and if you're in our Discord, we'll make sure you get hold of that. If you have not already, give us a follow. If you're on Twitch, hit the love heart and hit the bell so you get notifications when we go live. As I said, we'll be going live every Tuesday. If you are on YouTube, I believe it's subscribe over there. I don't know the verbiage of YouTube. I think it's subscribe and then hit the bell again. You can join. So our Twitch is Enso_org, same for YouTube. You can get notifications about everything that we're up to on Twitter at Enso_org, or as Ara said earlier, discord.gg/Enso. There it is. And we are on Medium as well, also _org, Enso_org, for our dev blog, where we keep you all up to date with everything we're working on. So thank you all so much for tuning into the kickoff of our Twitch channel. This has been amazing. The chat has been booming. Your questions have been great. We really appreciate it and you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, whatever time it is for you. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Marcin. Oh, this is where we realise I didn't prepare a going out slide. If anyone asks, we're starting.